Hi, and welcome to the School Health Educators Podcast, where we discuss health education and how to best teach health ed in the K 12 setting. Hello, and welcome to the School Health Educators Podcast. I'm your host, Lori Reichel. Today, we're going to talk about how teaching health education actually supports our own personal wellness habits. And to help me out, I have Kathleen Vogt, which I am so happy about. She was on the Puberty Prof podcast with me a couple of years ago, and she spoke so beautifully about how to talk with children about certain topics. So, Kathleen, I'm so excited to have you back. Would you like to say hi to our audience?
Yeah, hello everyone. Kathleen Vogt here, calling in from Poughkeepsie, New York, the Hudson Valley area.
Do you mind telling us who you are and what your background is?
I'd love to. I am originally from Long Island. I know Lori is a fellow Long Islander. So grew up there, went to college at Montclair State University. I realized, I think last time I didn't include my alma mater and super proud of the work that Montclair State does. So I got my health education degree there, and found a job with the Arlington Central School District soon after. So I am closing out my 20th year in a couple of weeks.
Yay!
Yeah, teaching.
Yay!
I know it's amazing how fast that goes. And I've always been with eighth grade health or eighth grade health students.
So, in this episode, we're going to talk about like teaching health education and how it supports our personal habits. But before that, can you share what is your favorite thing regarding teaching our subject area?
I was thinking about this because you shared the questions ahead of time, and I was thinking, what do I really want to make sure I share with your listeners? Um, the first thing is it's just so relevant, right? Which is what many health educators will say, that we're creating a safe and supportive space for students to practice life skills, so they can feel more confident when they leave the classroom. And yes, there are other subjects that they can use as soon as they walk out, but I have a hard time thinking of one that's more applicable than health, right? So they're practicing it in the room, they're getting opportunities to make mistakes, to learn, to reflect, and then as soon as they walk out of the classroom, they can actually use what they're learning. So that's one thing. And then the other is I love that our subject lends itself to so many best teaching practices, right? Like you can do self-reflective stuff, you can do the group work, the scenarios, the application to real life, um, real world scenarios, right? Application. Um, yeah, so there's just like this freedom that comes with our subject because what we're doing requires all of that stuff, I think, to teach health education well. You incorporate so many different strategies in your classroom. So I love it for that because it's always changing.
I love how you said students are allowed to make mistakes in their classroom. And I find that so interesting because when we talk about decision making and substances or something like that, and sometimes students will say, I do this or whatever, we give them the opportunity to process stuff. So even if they're trying to say they would do something that potentially could be harmful, they might reflect back on and say it's a mistake. They can then process it outside of the classroom and go, you know what, this is the better choice for me. Health education classes are that opportunity for kids to figure out future decisions. Even if it's in the evening, that's when they're going to have to make a decision. And so let's
Yeah.
let's let them process and make a mistake in our class so they're more
Yes.
successful outside of it.
Right. And I often tell them, especially during self-management or when we're talking about like violence prevention, depression's a heavy topic and talking about how to help somebody and be a supportive person. And I'm like, I understand that you might be sitting here being like, when will I possibly use this information? I said, trust me that if the time happens, I hope that a light bulb is going to go off and you're going to say, okay, I know at least a little bit more than I did before, and I'm going to have the confidence, right? That self-efficacy to make a choice that's going to be helpful to somebody I care about or for myself. So it's just like, please be open to knowing that this stuff might be useful at some point, even if it doesn't feel like it's relevant this very moment. Yeah.
It's funny you used the theoretical construct, self-efficacy. I'm very impressed.
Oh.
I don't know if you remember that from your like pedagogical courses when you were being trained.
Yeah, well, I think it comes up a lot with the skills-based stuff too, right? Like that's why
Hmm.
we're doing it
Yeah.
partly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, how does teaching health education support your own personal wellness habits?
Oh boy. It's like a daily reminder of what I'm supposed to be doing, right? So in the last couple of years, we've done more with like analyzing influences. So when I was first thinking about what to share here, my own screen time habits, my sleep habits, I will have my students track. So this is something I started just in the last 2 years. I don't know why I wasn't doing it sooner, but they like couldn't figure out how many hours they were actually sleeping. Like they were paying no attention to it. And here I am
Hmm.
trying to encourage them to get 8 to 10 hours, and they're like blind to how many hours they're actually getting. Um, so for 3 weeks, I have them, they get into the habit right away. They're taking the paper out at the start of the class. When did you go to sleep? When did you wake up? But like also, what did you do before you went to sleep? And what was the quality of sleep? Because that matters. How did they feel? How do they feel right now? And starting to find like those patterns. So, one of the things that I have definitely adopted is anytime I'm trying to make any kind of personal change, is the tracking sheet really makes a difference. You got to see like the data,
Hmm.
of what you're actually doing, because we think our minds are really good at remembering and, taking stock of everything. But I don't know. I think it's not, what's the word? It's not that we're not biased to ourselves, but I think and we're not lying to ourselves, but I think we often think we might be doing better than we perhaps actually are. Um, or you might be surprised and find out you are doing better than you thought you were.
Hmm.
Some students were surprised to see that they actually got a good amount of sleep, but their quality wasn't great, and so changing up their habits before bed. Um, so sleep tracking, I moved all of my social media apps to the back of my phone, when I was teaching them different tips. Um, we talk about ways to interact less with our screens, to also improve our sleep. So I have adopted some of those strategies, or I've tried them with the students.
Hmm.
Um, so that's one thing. The other, I don't know why this happens, but whenever I'm getting observed, I tend to be doing self-management, and then I get stressed about being
Uh,
observed, and I'm gonna be,
I know
I'm
it's still stressful, even though you're an experienced educator.
yes, and I'm like, how is this possible that I'm yet again being stressed out while I'm teaching stress because I'm about to get observed? It's kind of hysterical, but it happens at least every other year or something. Just the way that the observation falls. You'd think I'd start to use the same. No, you can't use the same lesson, but that was my dad's advice, who is started teaching over 40, well over 40 years ago. So anywho, I'm getting off track. Self-management. One of the things I've restarted, I had been doing this in 2020 and then got out of the habit because my routines changed, but journaling. So every morning I have a journal and I do just a rose, very cliche, a rose, a thorn, and then either a bud or something I'm grateful for. And it is very grounding, and that is a stress strategy or stress management strategy that I have tried to encourage my students to practice more. But I've found that unless I give them the time to actually practice it, they are not going to do it outside of the classroom necessarily. You know,
Yes.
um,
Hmm.
so that's the same thing with the tracking, right? I wanted them to experience what that was like for me to create um, the space and the time in the classroom. And we do that actually before our goal setting project, where they're choosing a goal for themselves and then they get to track and they create their tracker for it.
Mhm.
Um, so I know I'm going back and forth here, but I think that piece is really important. And then with stress management, journaling, I read more now. I find because it's so relaxing. Deep breathing, I tell the students that is something you have access to all the time. You need no materials, um, and it's incredibly helpful to help you figure out what comes next. Yeah. So those are just a few things that I had thought about before coming on here. Um, I don't know if I'm again switching back and forth, but like with goal setting and it's reinforcing that tracking, if you don't mind me sharing a story,
No, go for it, please.
it's kind of like I've started where I am now, but how this kind of all began was when I was first getting the students to create these 2 to 3 week goals. Um, to really buy into it, I'm like, I need to show them my own example. So whenever we do this project, I do a goal myself. And my husband and I were going on a national park vacation, and I hadn't been exercising as much as I had in the past. And I'm like, well, we're going to be hiking. That's like the whole thing of this vacation. So I set a goal and I'm like, okay, I'm going to exercise 30 days between these two dates. And I created just a computer piece of paper with 30 boxes and I posted it up at the top of our stairs. And every day that I achieved my exercise, I gave it a little check. Um, and there were a couple of days where I went back and my husband had written a little encouraging word like doing way better than I am, or keep it up. And so I held on to this piece of paper because I wanted my students to see like I'm doing the thing that I'm trying to encourage you to do. And I find it really beneficial and helpful. And then, without knowing, there's the support, right? So I was able to show them how letting other people know what your goal is can give them the ability or the time or the space to support you. So like my husband was supporting me because he knew what my goal was. And he didn't do it in some grand way. It was just little notes of encouragement. And because I let him in on my goal, he was able to do that. So encouraging students to tell people what they're trying to improve and to not be embarrassed. And so then we also, now with our goal project, they have goal coaches. So they check in with a partner in the classroom, they interview each other, give each other little tips. So the goal setting is definitely, I think, one area that I've actually taking what I'm teaching and trying to apply it anytime I want to do something new.
I love everything you said because to me, and I tell this to future health educators, like the cool thing about teaching health is you become healthier. You do, and you realize sometimes you're not perfect, and that's okay. Nobody is perfect. That would maybe make really boring people at times if we're all perfect. Not to have
Yeah.
a judgment there, yet we're not perfect beings. We have challenges in our lives, no matter what, however you want to live your life, you're still going to have life challenges to grow. Yet, I grabbed as you were talking, I had to grab something that you actually were referring to that I do something very similar in my life, and I've been doing it for, I think, about 20 years. And that is, and I have my worksheet here for
Mm.
2025.
Yeah.
Every New Year's Day, I share with my significant other, my partner, I call them SMEEPs of goals, the social, mental, environmental, emotional, physical, spiritual, occupational, and financial goals. He also gets a worksheet, and I ask him, like, he knows he has this homework or whatever, but it's not like a pain. It's more like we sit down on New Year's and we talk about what we hope to accomplish over the year. And sometimes they're more specific things, so we can go to the SMART goal, kind of like
Yeah.
standards. Other times they're more general. And the purpose of it is to ensure that we're both being purposeful with their lives and that we're
Yeah.
supporting each other in our lives. And during my birthday, which is in August, I also look at them. Well, I have them up all the time. I like referring to them because I really want to make sure I'm taking the ride I bought the ticket for. And what's really cool is, as a health educator, I share this with my students. Like, I actually do this. I
Yeah.
do this. And
Yep.
now, since I'm teaching at the college level, I even have the ability to share. Like, I just finished Dimensions of Sexuality, Health Sexuality class, something like that, with undergraduates, not school health education majors. And it was
Right.
neat to share like communication skills I've used in my life and refusal skills I used earlier to say, yes, I know I'm potentially the age of your parents. However, if not older, however, this is what worked for me and this is why I made this decision.
Yep.
And I will say at the end of the semester, because we based the class on analyzing influences, that skill, that national standard, and they are smarter
Mm.
and they teach me like the social media that you brought up about, you can
Yep.
record that. And they even, I'll give them my phone, like, where is it on here? How much
Yep.
time? And I love that where we work as a community, the students and the teachers, we work so well together.
Yes. Yeah. It's, and that's like because you're talking about life, right? So like why let's help each other do this the best
Yeah,
that we can, right?
absolutely.
And different tips can work for different, people. So yeah.
I,
Oh, I love that you have that as a visual. That's as you were saying that you like to keep it up. That just also reminded me that um, the students when they are tracking, like it's again just that reminder, right? So maybe it's not a tracker, maybe you're going to change the background of your cell phones,
mhm,
putting a post-it somewhere. Just the visual cues are really impactful, and I
yes, they are.
think emphasizing that is helpful.
Since you brought that up, I know when I was teaching in the eighth grade and high school level, and we did work on some goal setting things, and they had a document. And I like hard copies of things. I know I want to be environmentally friendly, yet I recognize that kids need that. So I
Hmm.
said to them, if you can show proof that you have whatever you created with goals, if you have it posted somewhere that you can see on a regular basis, I'll give you extra credit. And they would put it in their lockers. They would take a picture of it and show it to me. They put it in their like the bathroom mirror, their
Yeah.
in their bedroom and stuff. And yeah, like that visual reminder is fantastic.
Yes. Yeah. So that is definitely something that I've adopted that I wasn't doing maybe as much prior to teaching goal setting in the way that I've learned to teach. I know a lot of health educators, they sometimes struggle with teaching that skill. It
Hmm.
is one that I feel like I've finally gotten a good hold on. And
Excellent.
now I feel like I can do some more with it,
Hmm.
that's more creative or giving more flexibility to the students. Yeah, so it's a good place. And I partly because I've practiced it myself, so now I can put myself in their shoes and understand what's going to help and what maybe isn't necessary. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Now, if I can ask you, we're going to go back a little bit. You said you do this journaling of the rose, the thorn, and the bud. Can you just give a brief overview of what that means in case our listeners don't know what that is?
Yeah. So rose is anything positive that's on my mind that recently happened. It can be an event that took place or just something I'm proud of myself for. Um, I'm trying to think. Recently, I think I was just I don't know, maybe I was proud of myself for getting through my lesson planning this week or something. It can be small wins, right? No, it doesn't have to be some major thing. A thorn is just maybe something that's taking up too much space in my brain that's not helpful, and I need to get it out. Acknowledging that I'm not happy about something or I'm sad. Um, yeah. And oftentimes it's something I can't control, right? So that's why I try to put it to the paper because it helps me realize that. And then the bud is something I'm looking forward to. I try to keep it more short term, as opposed to something that's coming up too far down the road. And then grateful, gratitude, anything. Sometimes it's grateful for. I think I recently wrote because we're planning a trip this vacation or this summer, and I wrote I'm grateful for a partner who is really good at planning vacations because
Nice.
I am, and other times I'm grateful for my health or
Hmm.
my ability to speak up when I don't agree with something.
Mm,
It can
wonderful.
it can run the gamut. Yeah,
Thank you for explaining that. Thank you.
you're welcome.
Is there anything else you'd like to share for today's episode?
Um, the only other thought that came to mind, I'm sure other health educators feel this way too, when teaching our students about decision making and also analyzing influences, just our values. And I think once I turned to skills-based health ed, our values became a big piece to helping students know like why you're doing what you're doing and are your choices aligned with who you are or who you're trying to be. And so as I started teaching that, it really gave me an opportunity to kind of pause and think about, what do I really care about, and how have my values changed over time?
Hmm.
And am I showing my students what I care about too? Like I would like to think that I'm the same person in all walks of life, but
Hmm.
that doesn't always carry through sometimes, right? Um, and I would like to think that, let's say, for example, I value being patient. Well, it's hard to tell my students I value being patient if I'm not patient with them, so it keeps me sometimes in check as well with, am I being my best self, whatever that may mean for right now, right? Because I think we have to give ourselves grace sometimes too.
Hmm.
Um, but
Absolutely.
yeah, so the whole clarification, doing that more with my students has helped me figure out who I am as an adult.
Wonderful. And how you change as you age. I mean, you look
Yeah.
fantastic. I'm not calling you like old or anything like that.
No,
I'm older
no,
than
no.
you. Yet it's
Yeah,
like
but
we're not
I
supposed
no,
to
I
be
know
the
what you
same
mean.
person.
Yeah. Yep. And the other thing I jotted down, I've had teaching assistants in my classroom, and I just love when, I'm in the faculty room having lunch with them, and they'll just be like, "This is the class that everybody should take." Like,
Hmm.
yep, yep. No matter no matter how old you are, right? You can
Hmm.
take something out of the health education classroom.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, if somebody wanted to get in touch with you, Kathleen, how could they do that?
I think the best way is email, honestly,
Okay.
if they really wanted to chat or ask for any resources. Um, so I don't know if you'll put my email address, I imagine. Okay.
Absolutely. Do you
Um,
want to say it out loud?
sure. It's K and then my last name, Vogt, V as in Victor, OGT at acsdny.org. I am on Twitter, but I can't remember my handle
Okay.
because I'm not
If
really using it very much. A shout out, actually, Lori, I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but the Health NPE Collective, the Health
hmm.
NPE Collective. So there's been a lot of great ideas being shared on that platform. It was Jeff Bartlett and Jordan Manley. They were trying to create a space for health educators to share ideas that doesn't have all of the political pieces of social media that we sometimes encounter. So
Hmm.
I think there's a version that is free, and you can access a bunch of stuff on that. And then there's other versions if you care to do that.
Excellent.
Yeah,
Excellent.
hopefully, I hope it's okay to plug that.
Yeah, that's what the purpose of this podcast is to support the success of all school health educators. So it's to, yeah, however you can find information to strengthen your skill set to get more tools. That's perfect. That's perfect.
Okay, great.
Well, I thank you so much for spending some time with me, Kathleen, and potentially we're going to talk about health literacy coming up in the fall.
Yes.
Excellent. So I thank you so much for your time today. And to our listeners, thank you so much for listening in. I appreciate that you're following the School Health Educators podcast. Please tell others about it because it's the only podcast that is specific to those of us that work in the pre-K through 12 setting or that train people for this setting for school health education. Also, please check out the schoolhealtheducators.org website. There's a whole bunch of links, and this summer there'll be hopefully more updated links on there. And last but not least, thank you so much for what you do. You're making a difference, and we need to stick together to continue to make that positive difference to children and youth. So thank you again, Kathleen. Would you like to say goodbye for today?
Yeah. Thanks for listening, everybody, and hope you got something out of this. Take care.
Excellent. Thank you.